guys, this is the Academic Christian, also known as Chandler King. Where on this channel, we look at things through a research-based perspective, a biblical perspective, and a scientific perspective. So guys, I want to apologize that there hasn't been a video up in a long time. It's been about like 19, maybe 20 days, and it's because I have been in quarantine out of the country away from internet access. And um, I'm finally have made it back safe and sound. And I've honestly missed doing this. It's just one of those things. I'm sorry, and it was out of my control. But over time, all I really had was my phone to look at stuff. And when I was on YouTube, I found this guy, and his name is Dr. Sean McDowell, if I'm pronouncing that right. And I wanted to basically give the people who watch my channel, I think that you should always look at things not just from my perspective, but look at things from other Christians and other sources' perspective. So I'm giving you a source that I think is very reliable. I think this guy really has Christians and atheists' best thought at heart, and I'm going to give you why exactly I have loved his channel. Why I think, regardless of whether you believe in God or if you don't, why you should follow this man's channel. So I'm going to get started with my little slideshow I got put out. I'm a little nervous because I haven't done this in 20 days. And I mean, I just want to say I love and miss you guys that are on my Facebook channel and then my YouTube audience. I got a few new people who've subscribed, but you know, it's still smaller. But again, shout out to you guys, and I love you guys. So, how I was introduced to watching him, I was again in a different country, and I didn't have access to do things on YouTube like I normally would, which again was why I wasn't posting videos frequently. I usually at least post one video a week. And so I've had some people ask, hey, are you okay? And yes, I'm fine. But I had access to my phone, obviously. And I was watching YouTube, and I watch some atheist YouTube too, because it's kind of how I get some of my topic videos, posts that I do on Facebook that are written posts. I'm a better written person than I am a spoken person, by the way. So if you want to join my Facebook page, you really ought to look into it. But he was doing this role play with some high school students, and he actually, let me go ahead and tell you about him before I mention this. Sean McDowell, I want to say he teaches at Biola University. I'm not sure. But he is someone who is a well-known evangelical Christian. Um, he is someone who I feel really has atheists and Christians' best thought at heart, because he really, if you watch his videos, and I'm not someone who just knows this guy fully, he seems to always address issues where he's always kind. So how again I met, or how I saw him, it was a video where he was doing a role play, and in the role play he was pretending to be an atheist, and he was at this Christian high school. So at this Christian high school, he was role playing as an atheist. The students did not know he was a Christian. And he came in and he actually asked some really good questions. Like, he presented his presentation of why he supposedly didn't believe in God, which, I mean, again, it's a role play. They don't know it's him, who's a, well-known Christian person. But he was pretending to be a Christian philosopher. I mean, not a Christian, atheist philosopher. that taught at UCLA, which he doesn't, or at least not to my knowledge. But so he ended up having the students, of course, ask him questions, and he presented stuff even I didn't think about, which is, kind of cool. Because this is one thing that is important to think. Atheists are all not the same. I know on this channel I'm like, hey, I kind of get tired when people who are atheists say this, and this. My thing is, not all atheists are the same. There are a lot of atheists who are very sweet and kind. And sometimes even me, I put them in a box and I don't even mean to. And it's one of those things, if I do that, I'm sorry. And it's not what I'm actually meaning to do. So he asked some questions, or the students asked some questions, and he gave some responses that, I didn't even think of. And I went back and I looked, and of course I have different points now where I've researched and I've looked unbiasedly and I have answers to a lot of those questions now. But he, gave common thought that a lot of atheists have. But I also wanted to point out something that's just as amazing is he takes criticism very well. And sometimes that's the opposite of me. Someone could criticize me and I'm like, oh, let's go. And it shouldn't be that way. Um, he I mean, you could just tell he's really a good person at heart. After his role play thing, there were a couple well-known atheists who came out and gave him suggestions, said, hey, well, why not have a real atheist do this? Because some of these questions are not what we would ask. We would ask some that are more difficult. And he actually, he responded and was kind about it. And so he was basically like, hey, I take a lot of my students to different colleges. We give thought processes from Muslim thought processes, Buddhist, and atheist. And he was explaining, like, hey, this is just the thought process we've noticed from some people who've taught at college that were atheists. And he takes criticism kind of well. He was just explaining why, and he's like, point noted. I could have really brought in a real atheist about this. And, it was some good things that, it really means something when someone can take criticism that is outside of their own group, the Christian group. If you can sit there and you can have great conversations with people who don't believe, that's a real start in trying to question what is the most important question in life is there a higher power? It's one of the most important things, one of the most important questions we'll ever ponder in life. So I was mentioning how he took criticism very well about, atheist. He went and responded in a very kind way and took the criticism very well. I wanted to say that he also talks about a lot of social issues that are relevant today. One of the biggest things that is important, and when you ever or go into the New Testament and you read a lot of the parables that Christ was relaying to the common people of the day, was because he was relating it to them. And so this is sometimes, a weak point I find with some pastors is it's very hard for them to relate some of what they believe to events that are happening today. And he does a really good job at this. It's something that I also really enjoy. And this is something that me and Christians, and I'm a Christian, by the way, we sometimes butt heads about is why are people leaving the faith? I watched a video and there was a talk on it. And, tell you the truth, a lot of Christians are, think, oh, well, it's closer to the end. Satan's stepping up his game. And don't get me wrong, I believe the end of time will happen. But I'm very critical of people always saying, hey, the end's happening now. The end's happening soon. The end's happening. until we see some major events that are lined up in the Bible, we should really question whether the end's happening. I honestly believe that when the end happens, we're not going to have many Christians. I just feel that we'll be in such a thing where there aren't many Christians. Uh, he really addressed that a lot of people are leaving the faith because of the information era. We have access to things on our computer. We can look up information for ourselves. And so a lot of people who would have been going to church, or a lot of people who wouldn't have even questioned anything about God, are now questioning things because it's sometimes a double-edged sword having information. It's very helpful, it's very useful, but at the same time, you're having people leave the faith because of it. So, I mean, I don't think it's because Satan is stepping up his game, it's because we have easy access to stuff. And because we have easy access to stuff, we have easy access to different viewpoints. And in that, oh, I'm sorry, I'm getting choked up. And in that, you have where not only do you have access to different viewpoints, you're able to look up stuff scientifically. On this channel, we do try to look at things scientifically and research based. And a lot of, even though 51% of scientists believe in a higher power, notice I didn't say 51% are Christians, I said higher power. A lot of science fields have an explanation for how the world got started without there being a higher power. Now, of course, I don't believe that's true. I got a science degree. I believe in God. I believe He was the one who created the universe. But at the same time, because we got this information at the tip of our hands, we are now having people that would have probably never questioned God, would have never went through any of that now all of a sudden are questioning Him. And it's just because we got more information. And I really like how he addressed this. It's really important to know that sometimes, are we going to go towards the supernatural view? And don't get me wrong, I'm Christian. I believe in the supernatural. But 9 times out of 10, I don't believe that's necessarily the answer. I believe there's a way we could look at almost everything scientifically or research based before we move to the supernatural. And it was one of those things I really enjoyed, that he took a realistic approach on this. And don't get me wrong, I do believe Satan is in this world, and that he is constantly, wreaking havoc in this world in some way, and he influences the world. But I think the main cause of decline in Christianity is information. And he addresses this very beautifully, just how I think. And it's starting to become a major problem, for people who are Christian, just because we want people to be saved. I want to move on, though, to, he also has some interesting stuff. I put progressive versus conservative Christianity. He gives some pretty awesome thought points into this. But it's not just this. He talks about several social issues that influences the world today. He talks about racial issues, how to treat atheists. The list goes on, man. And the dude, you can tell, if you ask my opinion, I think he's very filled with the Holy Spirit. And, atheists who might come across my channel, if you don't like my content, I think you'll like his. Because I've noticed it's very amazing to sit there and you look and you see atheists go on a Christian YouTube channel, and they're like, this dude is awesome. I think that speaks volumes. They may be like, hey, I don't believe, but this guy's awesome. I'm subbing and I'm going to watch. And that's important, because that means that now we can get our message out and things like that. But he does so in a kind way where he kind of sets boundaries. He's not going to be forceful with anything. So let me go ahead and move on to my last little points. This video will probably be a little bit shorter than the others, I'm not used to being in front of a camera, so you're not going to get your typical 30-minute video in. So he is a perfect example of how you should treat unbelievers. People who saw a video that I did a few weeks ago, I was critical of this Christian evangelicalist that I got a little bit of backlash for it. It's YouTube. Um, and I do still view that I was right in that matter, but it's one of those things. It is what it is. Um, he is someone that you could tell has atheist best view in heart. He goes. I mentioned he did a role play. He gets atheist points of view, and he always tries to address them in a kind manner. So in his role play video, he said some things, and some atheists came out. One of them is Drew from Genetically Modified Skeptic. And I'll be honest, I watch his channel a lot, even though he is an atheist. And a lot of it helps me put out some points that I make. Um, but to me, I'll say this. He is an atheist, even though I don't agree with a lot of his viewpoints. He's someone who is very kind. And he's someone who treats Christians with respect. He doesn't agree with a lot of things. He does, of course, sometimes he speaks out against a lot of Christian things because, he doesn't believe. And I think one thing that we as Christians do that are, isn't the best, we sometimes put atheists in a box and say, hey, this is how they are, versus each person's different. Just like there's different sects of Christianity. You got Catholics, you got Methodists, you got Baptists, you got all these different things. And so basically I'm giving you a little background on Drew. I may do a video on him. He doesn't even know who I am. But he's a very kind atheist who was a little critical of Sean, because he was like, hey, you really ought to get a real atheist for this video. And what I ended up watching and what I loved was there was a video that they had, and I think I ought to link it in the description, and I probably will. It was an hour and a half of a Christian and an atheist from two different walks of life just talking and bonding, which again on YouTube you don't see that often. We often see these things that are hate filled, and hey, I'm bashing you, or I'm bashing you, you're dumb for believing this. No, you're dumb for believing this. That's what we see in YouTube nowadays. Versus, hey, we need to love each other. And so what he did was he got different viewpoints of them. He was asking things like, okay, well, how were you treated like this? And you saw different things of how he was taking this atheist, and he wasn't trying to force anything, but he was basically saying things where he was trying to get to know him, get to know common problems that he might have faced. And not only common problems, he then asked him, what would you do if you had a child, and let's say you were a Christian parent, and they came out as, someone who didn't believe. And it was one of those things that the answer, he was taking this person's viewpoint, and he's basically like, hey, how would you address this? Because it's important to get atheist viewpoint, because this is one thing a lot of us as Christians do, is we love our neighbors and we love people who don't believe. And sometimes we get caught up in, I gotta do this. I gotta make sure that they know the gospel. I gotta save them. But sometimes we gotta realize love is sometimes not forced. And it's one of those things, you gotta let them know that you love them and you got their best interest at heart. But at the same time, you got to set up boundaries sometimes. And so it was one of those things that I've noticed when he talked with someone who was a well-known atheist, and it seemed like they meshed pretty well. So just my last point, guys, if you're atheist and you're watching my channel, you come across it, and you could not like my content or you could like it, I don't know, or you're Christian, I'm telling you, follow this guy. This guy is very kind. I don't think he will. I think he will try to make sure that everyone's welcome. And I've noticed a lot of atheists feel welcome on his channel. A lot of them subscribe. A lot of them are like, hey, he addresses things in a way that I believe Christians should. And he addresses it here. And it's like, hey, this is someone that, and to tell you the truth, I don't watch that many TV evangelicals. And I may make a new thing of videos of where I critique what I think about them, but I'm going to do it in a very kind manner. I'm going to let me put it like this. I'm going to use the Oreo cookie effect. And a lot of people are like, what? And so a lot of that I've learned as someone who's been an educator. You give some good criticism, in the middle you give some bad, and then some good. But this guy, I mean, from what I've seen, I can't see anything bad. I think he really has the best interest of people at heart. And I think that people who don't believe will really enjoy watching him. And I don't know. That's really all I got to say. This video is a little bit shorter. I want to sit here and say thank you to my YouTube and Facebook audience. Thank you for people who've sent kind messages asking how I was doing while I was in quarantine somewhere else. I want to say that, it's amazing the love that has come from some of y'all. And that I'm going to be putting more content out again. It's the end of my little summer semester for grad school, so I may be caught up doing a lot of that stuff. So this might be the only video you get this week, or it might not. It just depends. If you really like this video, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. And also, if you like this video, and you want more like it, I may actually do some videos where I critique different YouTube channels that are Christian. Not out of something that's hate, like I'm not going to come out and be like, boom, these people are horrible. It's not going to be like that. It's going to be more like, hey, it's going to be more of a place that comes from the heart where I look at them and I'm like, okay, they might do this good. I feel like they should improve on this. They do this good. That kind of thing. I think that the only way we improve as people is that we are critical of each other, and I honestly ought to take criticism myself a little bit better. And it's one of those things. College professors and things are critical of your paper, and it's not because they don't like you; it's they want you to improve, and that's part of how we improve. Want to say much love to you guys. Peace out. Hope you enjoyed everything.